We think it's very nice to know your alphabet. And at New York's Great Bronx Zoo, A stands for Andy, and here he is, a 3.5 years old orangutan from the island of Borneo. Andy doesn't know anything at all about the alphabet, but we're gonna show him the animals in the zoo, whose names begin with alphabet letters from A to Z. A is for Aoudad, a kind of wild sheep that lives on the hot, dry hills of northern Africa. Just see how fast it can run. B is for bear, and especially the big white polar bears that live near the North Pole. In the zoo, they like to dive into the water, and Andy's friend shows him just how they do it. Splash, and he's in. Polar bears have lots of fun in their pool. They have a barrel to play with, and on very hot days, they dive and splash and play all day long. They don't mind heat at all. C comes next, and C stands for camel. Children ride on camels in the Bronx Zoo and have lots of fun. This kind of camel comes from the Arabian desert. The next letter is D, and D is for deer. This is a kind of deer called the Parry-David's deer that used to live in China. These are the only ones in the United States. What does E stand for? Well, E is for these playful young African elephants. Let's listen to them. F is the letter that stands for frog, and this is a poison dart frog that's coated in lethal substances, so it's best to wear protective gear if necessary. Only if you ever stumble into one of these guys. G is for gibbon, a kind of ape that lives in Malaysia. Let's listen to its call. G also stands for giraffe, the tallest animal in the world. Some giraffes are 3 times taller than a man. In Africa, it eats leaves, but in the Bronx Zoo, it likes a piece of bread, and it's willing to bend way, way down to get it. Did you ever see a giraffe bend down? This is the way he does it. Here comes the letter H, and H stands for the hippopotamus of Central Africa. This one is named Pete, and he's the oldest hippopotamus in any zoo in the world. He was born in 1903, and he likes to eat cabbage for breakfast. I stands for a pretty bird, the scarlet ibis of South America. When hundreds of scarlet ibises perch on a tree, it looks as if the tree were bloomed with red flowers. Jaguar begins with J, and that's our animal for this letter. Everyone likes this jaguar in the Bronx Zoo because it's gentle and friendly. What does K stand for? K stands for the kangaroo that comes from Australia on the other side of the world. Most kangaroos have baby kangaroos or joeys in their pouch, and they carry it with them everywhere. L stands for the African lion, so Andy and his friends go to see the African Plains exhibit in the Bronx Zoo. They want to hear the lions roar, and did you ever hear a lion roar? Well, just listen. Next is the letter M, and M is for marmoset, a kind of little monkey that lives in South America. At first, the babies ride on the backs of their fathers and mothers, but soon they learn to play by themselves. Don't they hop around like little frogs? In this alphabet, N stands for Nyala, one of the pretty antelopes that live in Africa. All of these Nyalas are brothers and sisters. O is for orangutan, and that's what Andy is, of course. Sometimes Andy pretends that he is shy and tries to hide away, but we do know where he is. O also stands for ostrich, the biggest bird in the world. It can't fly, but we can see how fast it can run. P is for penguin, and that's another kind of bird that can't fly. These are king penguins that live down by the South Pole. It can swim underwater faster than a fish. There aren't many animals whose names begin with Q, but here's the quail, a bird that lives in the fields. Someday, when you're out in the country, maybe you'll see one. Next is R, and that's for rhinoceros that lives in Africa and Asia. He likes to stir up the dust with his nose, and then he walks over to beg for apples. S is for sea lion. Let's listen to his bark. S also stands for skunk, and that's one animal Andy's sure he doesn't want to make friends with. One look and one sniff and Andy's getting out of there, and when Andy doesn't like something, he makes a face about it. In the Bronx Zoo, T is for tiger, and especially for this beautiful, gentle mother Bengal tiger who was born in the Bronx Zoo. T is for tortoise, and Andy's always learning about it because someday he's going to take a slow, easy ride on one of these big tortoises from the Galapagos Islands. They don't bite because they only eat leaves and cactus and green things like that. U is for a very rare sort of bird. The umbrella bird that comes from South America. It's called that because it could spread the feathers on top of its head, opening like an umbrella. At certain seasons, the male puffs out his throat like this. V is for another bird, the North African vulture. It isn't very pretty, is it? But here's another kind of vulture that's pretty. This is the king vulture that lives in Mexico and in parts of South America. After V comes W, and that's for the wolf. There used to be a lot of wolves in the United States, but they only live in out-of-the-way places now, and they're not dangerous to people. X is a hard letter to find an animal for, but these are Xenopus frogs. Most people like to put them in glass containers. These frogs come from Africa. For the letter Y, we have the long-haired yak from Tibet. I wouldn't want to wear long hair like that in summertime, would you? Everybody knows that Z stands for zebra, and that's the last letter in the alphabet. We've gone all around the Bronx Zoo looking at the animals from A to Z, and that's the end of Andy's animal alphabet.